What's going on, everybody? Mike from Awaken the Masses here. Well, it's March the 3rd, and it's been a minute since I've given an update, and there's a reason for that. There's been a lot going on in a couple different respects. So I really don't even know where to begin, so I'm just going to begin. The last thing we left off with was the update that the Internal Affairs investigation was closed, and they sent me a letter indicating that it was closed. And the letter was very ominous, and I included that letter in the last update. So since then, I did a public records request, and I got all the notes, the findings, the actual interviews, the recordings, and I'm going to post them on here. I got the official, complete, full investigation, and it's about 16, 17 pages long. And I made notes. I went through and highlighted stuff that I wanted to go over, and there's a lot of it. You can see that there's a lot of different things they lied about and stuff. And I'm going to be honest, man. I know I'm a 25-year fraud investigator, certified interrogator, all that good stuff. But you don't have to be what I am to see what I saw. And I'm not going to go through it all. I'm just going to post the investigation on here. You read through it, and then you listen to the audio recordings of the deputies. And then you tell me if you think that was a fair and unbiased investigation into my allegations of illegal detainment, defamation, slander, soliciting a trespass under false pretenses, conspiring to deprive me of my rights, dereliction of duty on the supervisor. There was, you all saw my internal affairs complaint. It covered everything in there. So I digress, and I am going to put down in the comments section, or not the comment section, but the detail section, where you put information about the video. I'm going to try to break down time captions for each recorded interview. That way, if you want to fast forward, if you don't want to hear the pastor's interview, or if you don't want to hear Alan's interview, or whatever it may be, you can just fast forward to a certain time frame. The interviews aren't long. I think Alan's interview was 7 minutes. They weren't very long at all. One of them was 10 minutes. One of them was 11 minutes. The longest interview was Pastor Sherin, and he was 24 minutes. He's a little motor mouth. And the shortest interview was 4 minutes. And anybody that knows anything about interviewing, especially something like this, you want to do a fair and impartial interview, it takes 2 to 3 minutes just to set up an interview, to put on the record the date, the time, who's present, disclaimers, make sure the person that recognizes verbally that they're being recorded gives permission to do so. Then there's closings. When you close out a recorded statement, there's a closing that you do, a little summation. Did they understand everything? Anything they want to change? Yada, 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 yada. So a 7-minute interview for an internal affairs investigation, including the opening and closing. I think that sums it up. So I hope you enjoy, and I want you all to see my new shirt I got for Christmas. I'll let you look at it here. Yeah, that's right. If at first you don't succeed, just do what Mike said to do to begin with, and you won't have any problems. Peace. Okay, so what you just read was the official full-length internal affairs investigative summary. And no, you didn't miss anything. There was just no substance to the interviews. So now what I'm going to do is actually post the recordings of the interviews. I'll post them in the order that they were taken. I think it's important to note, for some reason, they didn't take Deputy, excuse me, yeah, Deputy Gray. For some reason, all the other interviews were done in October of 2024. It looks like October the 4th. They were done on, October the 4th, October the 4th, October the 4th. So they did all the interviews on October the 4th, and for some reason they waited 67 days to interview Deputy Gray. And his interview was most disgusting of them of all. His attitude, his demeanor, it's just disgusting. So I'll post the interviews in the order they were taken. And just keep in mind, for some reason, they waited 67 days to interview Gray, and then his attitude in the interview. All right, so enjoy them.
Okay, you are recording. My name is Detective T.C. Edwards, the Nassau County Sheriff's Office Internal Affairs Unit. Today is October the 4th, 2024, and the time is 09:34 hours. This is an interview of Sergeant Murdoch. This interview is in reference to Internal Affairs case number Alpha Delta Mike 24-0009. In the room is myself, Detective Jose Maldonado, and Sergeant Murdoch. If you please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Please state your name, spelling your last name.
It's Mark Murdoch, Murdock.
And you're where you're being recorded.
Yes.
And you've previously read, signed, and understand your order of confidentiality and your admin rights.
Yes.
Okay. The reason we're here is we received a complaint on an incident that occurred Wednesday, June 5th, 2024, that resulted in deputies responding to the Winn-Dixie parking lot. Is that in Callahan or Hilliard? I'm not sure.
It was in Hilliard.
Okay. Where an individual it was alleged an individual had been taking pictures of minors and had been confronted by a citizen over that incident. Do you recall this?
Yes.
What was your involvement in it?
I was just the supervisor responding. The complainant wished to speak with the supervisor, I believe.
Okay. And what was the scene when you arrived?
As far as
just what was going on at the scene when you arrived?
So when I got there, I noticed that whoever the subject was, I still don't know his name. He was parked not in a parking spot. It was I think a grayish, possibly gray or charcoal Ford Mustang, and it was pulled up to like the little plant section, like they would have parking spots to the left or right, but he was actually in the travel lane for the parking lot, so he wasn't really parked in a parking spot. He was also kind of berating the deputies. I couldn't hear what exactly he was saying. He was cursing quite a bit at them. Letting them know that he was law enforcement too, and he's a private investigator, just kind of running off at the mouth, just screaming at them.
Okay. Do you know, at the point at which you arrived, was he being detained or under arrest?
He was not under arrest. Now, he was being trespassed, so originally it started out he was at Journey West. I'll call it Journey West. It's West now, but it's a church across the street. And he was there allegedly doing a private investigation on somebody there. The pastor saw it as taking videos of kids because they have an after-school program, like a Boys and Girls Club, for like less fortunate kids or whatnot, and families, like some of them broken homes or whatnot, and that's kind of their time to, be out of the limelight and kind of get together and have social time with other kids. And then so the pastor confronted him over there. He ends up leaving, comes across the street and parks where I described earlier in like the travel lane. All right, I lost what was the original question?
Was he detained or arrested?
No, he wasn't arrested. He was outside of his vehicle. From what I understand, he gave Deputy Gray at the time gave him his private investigator's card, and I believe Daniel Jones went in at one point and talked to the manager or somebody in charge of the Winn-Dixie for the day, and let him know that there was somebody out there that they want and what he was doing. Would he like to have him trespassed? And that was the extent of it. When I got there, I was like, okay, so he doesn't have to be here for the trespass warning. Just tell him he's been trespassed from this place and that place, and sir, you need to leave the property. That's all you need to do. He doesn't sign anything. He doesn't do anything like that. Just tell him he's trespassed and get him going. So,
in your observations of Deputy Gray interacting with Mr. Hoffman, who was the individual identified as the PI, were his actions professional and appropriate?
from what I could tell, I mean, he was a little bit agitated, just the way the guy was talking to them and stuff like that. There was a bit of, we're all kind of told coming through, like, hey, if there's going to be a private investigator, they have to notify us. So he was going off of that, and they don't really have to notify us. It's a courtesy that they notify us, and the courtesy is more on for them, because if they are setting up an investigation on somebody, they want to contact us, say, hey, this is me, I'm a private investigator, here's my number. Basically, don't interrupt me type deal. That's where the courtesy is. It's more for them.
Right.
Well, he never did that. So that was clarified later on that they are not required by law to do that. And he was given a verbal counseling or whatever, or educated on the fact that they don't have to, once we verify that, hey, this is who he is, he's doing an investigation or whatever, just leave him be.
Okay, so although Deputy Gray was agitated with Mr. Hoffman, he was not disrespectful or unprofessional in his actions.
Not that I really observed.
Okay. The conversation that Deputy Jones had with the manager in the Winn-Dixie, did you hear that firsthand, or
No,
did you watch it later on?
That was later on.
Did you watch it later on video camera, on body camera footage, or?
No, I just
platform?
on I think YouTube or something like that. I caught a blip of it. Okay. I didn't listen to the whole thing though.
When you arrived on the scene, other than Deputy Gray and Deputy Jones, were there any other deputies on scene?
I want to say that Revels was there. He was parked way to the back. Revels was there, I think. I can't really recall.
Were there any other civilians there?
The pastor was there.
Okay.
Donald Sherin, I believe.
Do you recall when you arrived on the scene and stepping out of the vehicle making a statement to the effect of, I wish we didn't have these cameras?
Yes.
I did
say that.
Is that a violation of policy?
No, it's absolutely not. So, and I'll give an explanation because you'll want it, One, when I first pulled up, I was saying, this is going to be one of those times I wish we didn't have cameras. That was my statement. You can't hear that. You can see my mouth moving, but you can't hear it in the audio or anything. And when I step out, the pastor was like, what did you say? I was like, nah, it's nothing. I wish we didn't have cameras, But it's more, I could tell when I pulled up there that it was kind of like a situation that was going to develop into something, because the gentleman was saying, you can't solicit a trespass, you can't do this, you're violating my rights, I have a right to do this, and I used to be a cop, just the typical, kind of like a First Amendment type deal. And so it felt like it was going that direction, the way he was parked and everything. It's a private public parking lot,
Right.
It's 50-50 on whether you could write a citation for him being parked like that and whether you can't. you know, whether he can or can't. I was suspicious at the fact that a private investigator investigating somebody at Journey Church goes and parks exactly what he was investigating.
Right.
Seemed like a trap to me. So, I don't know, it just seemed off from the beginning. So my goal was, as soon as I got there, is like, get this guy gone, you know, as soon as possible.
I may have already asked this. Did you have any interaction with Mr. Hoffman?
Is that his name?
Yeah, Michael, he was the private investigator.
Okay. I did briefly. I told him, like, look, you've been trespassed from here, and you've been trespassed from the church across the street. You need to get your stuff and leave. You know, you're not being detained. You need to leave. Yeah. And then he wanted to stop me and talk to me right there in the middle of it. And I did say to him, you don't want to be detained. You're not going to detain me. You need to leave and get out of this parking lot. He was told to go. He asked if he could go to Wendy's. I said, feel free, go to Wendy's. We will not go down there and talk to anybody at Wendy's and let them know what you're doing out there. But go to Wendy's. This is done here.
Okay. You got anything to give? All right. Have you understood all my questions?
Yes.
Are there any answers you'd like to change?
I don't think so.
Is there anything else you wish to make known?
No, I don't think so.
And is everything you told me true?
Yes.
All right. That'll conclude the interview. The time is 09:44 hours.
All right, now you just heard from Sergeant Murdoch. The next person to be interviewed was Deputy Allen. That was the old man with the grandson at the church. So let's see what lies he's going to tell. All righty, enjoy.
We are recording. My name is T.C. Edwards at Nassau County Sheriff's Office Internal Affairs Unit. Today is October the 4th, 2024, and the time is 10:37 hours. This is an interview of Deputy Dale Allen. This interview is in reference to Internal Affairs case number Alpha Delta Mike 24-0009. In the room is myself, Detective Maldonado, and Deputy Allen. You'd raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name, spelling your last name, please.
Dale Allen. Last name's Allen.
And you're where you're being recorded?
Yes, sir.
And you've previously had a chance to read, understand, and sign your confidentiality notice and
Yes,
your
sir.
administrative rights form. Okay. The reason we're here today is to go back to an incident which occurred on June the 5th, 2024, involving an individual by the name of Michael Hoffman, in which Deputy Gray responded to a call for service of a suspicious person. Do you remember that incident?
Yes, sir.
And how did you come to be involved in that?
We were dispatched to a call referencing an individual videotaping children at a church up in Hilliard on US 1. Deputy Gray went 1097 prior to I did. Myself, I showed up after the fact. Deputy Gray had already made contact with the individual when I got there.
Okay. And what was the conversation or the interaction between Deputy Gray and Mr. Hoffman at the time that you arrived?
I asked Deputy Gray what we had, if I remember correctly, and he said we had a private investigator and he had a investigative ID. He did not have a Florida driver's license. The individual presented his investigative ID, not a Florida driver's license. And at that point, the subject became really argumentative, wanting to know if he was detained, yelling quite frequently, cussing at the deputies, cussing at Deputy Gray, and myself while we were there.
Okay.
He had his vehicle parked in a manner that was not normal for a person to park, so it was like he was wanting somebody to see him. He no longer was on the church property. He was across the street at the Winn-Dixie, in the Winn-Dixie parking lot, and his vehicle was not in a parking space. It was like technically in a pathway of the travel for the lot itself. It wasn't in a space.
Did you overhear any of the conversation between Deputy Gray and Mr. Hoffman concerning what he was doing at that location to start with?
Yes, sir. We were trying to ascertain why he was there. Mr. Hoffman was argumentative, said he didn't have to tell us what he was there. Deputy Gray went back to his truck and was in the process of doing a trespass because the pastor was there. He was behind us, and he was requesting the individual to be trespassed.
Now, when you say trespass, he was requesting the individual to be trespassed from the church?
Yes.
Okay.
And so Deputy Gray was in the process of doing that. Mr. Huffman kept yelling and screaming, "Am I being detained? Am I being detained?" And if I remember correctly, Deputy Gray said, "Yes, you're being detained for trespass." Because the way the scene played out, Deputy Gray, if I was standing between Mr. Huffman and Deputy Gray's vehicle, so I had more of a direct confrontation and verbal with Mr. Huffman than I did Deputy Gray.
Okay. Did you have any communication with Mr. Huffman
Yes, sir.
at that point? What happened with that?
Trying to ascertain why he was there. He kept saying he was former law enforcement. So I was kept trying to figure out why he was over at the church. He never would give us a direct answer or a direct say. He never even would say. All he kept saying was his ID, his credentials, was all he had to show. He never would said, and I remember asking him, I don't want to know anything technical, but why are you there? Or we got to call your videotaping kids. Doesn't that draw some reasonable suspicion to you? And he would say no. So we couldn't come in. He was supposed to be former law enforcement. We couldn't come to common ground about what reasonable suspicion is. He was just very argumentative, stating that his ID was all he needed to say, and he didn't need to say anything else.
Okay. Approximately how long, on your guesstimation, would you say that Mr. Hoffman was detained on the scene?
It were several minutes because the sergeant ended up showing up. So he was detained for several minutes because he was fussing about how long does it take to type out a trespass. And I told him it varies. Depends on the deputy. When we couldn't come into a solid ground as far as trying to just get an idea of why he was there. He was giving us no explanation of why he was doing what he was doing. I said, okay. I said, you're supposed to be a deputy in the past and you understand reasonable suspicion. Let's look at it from another point of view. I said, take myself as a law enforcement out of it. And he was constantly verbally really abusing law enforcement. I said, look at it from my perspective. I said, we got children over there, and I got an accusation that you're videotaping children. I said, you don't see that's some type of a concern that we should actually figure out what you're doing? And he said, no, I don't. I said, well, look at it from my perspective. Don't you think that would bring up some concern for me? And no, I don't. And then he was kept trying to bait me into saying something to get myself in trouble. And I said, sir, don't bait me. And that was pretty much the end of our conversation.
Okay. While you were there, do you recall Deputy Jones being on the scene?
Yes, sir. I remember him. He was on the passenger side of Deputy Gray's vehicle.
Okay. Do you recall Deputy Gray asking Deputy Jones to go check with the folks in Winn-Dixie?
Yes.
The trespass warning. Was there any information that you're aware of that was exchanged between Deputy Gray and Deputy Jones as to why the trespass warning was needed?
Not that I'm aware of. I remember Deputy Gray asking Jones to go in and ask the people at Winn-Dixie if they wanted them trespassed, and that was all because Deputy Jones was on the other side of the vehicle. He was on the passenger side, and I was on the driver's side between Gray and Mr. Huffman.
So in your mind, at the time of the incident, do you believe Deputy Jones had any more or any less information than what you had?
No, he didn't get any more.
Okay. Were you still on the scene when Sergeant Murdoch arrived?
Yes, sir. He arrived. I was still there. I was between all of them. They had a conversation behind me. I didn't hear any of that conversation.
When you say they, that was
Deputy Gray and Sergeant Murdoch.
okay. When Sergeant Murdoch stepped out of his vehicle, he made a statement of, "I wish," something to the effect of, "I wish we didn't have cameras."
I never heard that.
Never heard that. Okay. What was the pastor's demeanor during this time?
Pastor's demeanor was, I felt like he was probably egging it on a little bit. I was sort of shocked that you're a pastor, but then you got to take that age of the individual too. He's sort of a young guy. Because I remember he made a comment to me after Mr. Huffman left and went across the parking lot to the Winn-Dixie that he had a tail light out.
To the Winn-Dixie?
To the Wendy's. I'm sorry. To the Wendy's, because he went to the Wendy's parking lot and parked over there. He made a comment he had a tail light out, and I'm like, let it go. It was like he was wanting to stir the pot a little bit.
Right. Were you ever trained by anyone in Nassau County Sheriff's Office that private investigators had to or were required to contact dispatch prior to setting up a surveillance?
No, sir. I was not. And I went and looked it up and looked through municipal ordinances and looked up state statute, and I was not able to find anything per that.
Okay.
Because I questioned that myself. And after this whole incident, I questioned that myself. So I went and looked in municipal ordinances. I looked in state statute. I could not find anything.
In your opinion, at any time, was Deputy Gray, Deputy Jones, or Sergeant Murdoch unprofessional in their interaction with Mr. Hoffman?
No, sir. I didn't see anything from Deputy Gray that would say it was unprofessional. There were some words exchanged, but no, there was no foul language on the deputy's part or anything like that I can recall. Deputy Jones tried talking to Mr. Huffman to ascertain why he was there, because during this whole scene, he never would give us a reason, even to the point I'm doing an investigation. He wouldn't even tell us that. If he would have just said, I'm investigating an adult across the street, that would have been all you needed to know. But we never got any of that out of him. All he would pertain is kept saying, that's my ID, that's all you need to know. So Deputy Jones was trying to defuse him a little bit, but Mr. Huffman was still being very argumentative, and that's when Deputy Jones just said, okay, we can't come to an agreement here. There's no sense in talking anymore.
Okay. All right. Have you understood all of the questions that I've asked of you today?
Yes, sir.
Are there any answers you'd like to change?
No, sir.
Is there anything else about this incident you want to make known?
No, sir.
And is everything you told me true?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That will conclude the interview. The time is 10:48 hours.
Okay, so you just heard from Deputy Allen. Now you're going to hear from the pastor, Donald Sherin of Journey New West Church, whatever it's called. Real upstanding gentleman he is, man of God. Yeah, I'll let you make that decision for yourself. Anyway, enjoy.
All right, we are recording. My name is Detective T.C. Edwards of the Nassau County Sheriff's Office Internal Affairs Unit. Today is October the 4th, 2024, and the time is 12:47 hours. This is an interview of, is it Mr. or Pastor?
Pastor Donald Sherin.
Pastor Donald Sherin. This interview is in reference to Internal Affairs case number Alpha Delta Mike 24-0009. In the room is myself and Detective Maldonado and Pastor Sherin. Pastor Sherin, if you please raise your right hand to be sworn. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name, please.
Donald Sherin, Shearin.
Okay. And you're where you're being recorded?
I am, and I consent.
Okay. And you've previously had a chance to read over, understand, and sign your witness rights form and your confidentiality notice?
Absolutely.
Okay. The reason we're here today is we'll take you back to an event that was called into the sheriff's office on, if I find the call for service. On June the 5th, 2024, approximately 10:35 in the morning.
Yes.
Do you recall that incident?
Very well. Every detail.
Okay. On the call, excuse me. On our call log, it shows that the caller's name was Chance Derringer. Is that somebody that is employed by the church? Or?
I'm going to ask you to admit that or start over because that guy, you shouldn't have said his name.
No, it's on the thing. I have to. But
right,
but that's public record. It's already been dispersed, actually.
Okay. All right. I've tried to protect him because a lot of these YouTube videos have, said I called the police, which I did.
Okay. So we'll but you recall the incident?
Correct.
That was called in at the Journey Church.
Yes.
Okay. Did you make contact with Mr. Hoffman in the parking lot of the church prior to the police arriving?
I did not make contact with him. Chance did.
Okay. And did you arrive at the Winn-Dixie parking lot after Mr. Hoffman changed locations prior to the police engagement or after the police already arrived?
Yeah, so let me kind of explain what happened leading up to that. I arrived late to VBX. VBX is a children's event. It's got 100 plus kids running around in our fields, and so some of them through foster care that have to be protected, can't be filmed. We have to be very cognitive of that when we broadcast our online experiences, doing our photography and different things of that nature. And so if we are not running the camera, we don't let anybody run a camera because of the situations, battered women, different things, seeking refuge, shelter. I showed up late to VBS. I had a dermatologist appointment in Jacksonville, and when I got there, I noticed a silver Mustang with limo tinted windows, and he had one of those sunshades deployed across the front. And he had this little video camera up in the left-hand corner aimed at that field. Now this is church property, which is private property. We do not open our church up for anything except for experiences. So it is private property. Nobody has a right to be there except for the parishioners of the church. We don't even, once parents drop their kids off for VBX, you got to come, there's a whole system to get your kid out. We lock that place down because there's kids. So I saw a video camera facing that field, and my kid was in that field. And my blood, honestly, was rising because what, appears to be evil going on. But at the same time, I didn't know. So I wanted to get one of my safety team members to deal with it. We have a incredible safety team. And in fact, one of the people that that used to serve on Obama's detail is one of that helped set up our safety team at the church. So it's very well organized and put together well. And they de-escalate situations very well. And so I asked Chance to go out and speak with the individual because he's the calmest out of probably anybody that we have. And he went out, he approached the car we now know as Mr. Hoffman, and he asked him what he was doing. He lied to him at the time. He said that he was waiting on somebody, and we explained to him that our parking lot's not open to the public. He can't wait there. He needs to go. If he wants to go to Winn-Dixie, go to Winn-Dixie, but he needs to leave the property. He cooperated. He did not get belligerent or anything like that. He just left. He went down the road. He did not go, it would have made sense if he would have just went across and because there's an access right there and go into the parking lot, but he made it appear like he was leaving the area. And about 2 or 3 minutes later, I noticed the Mustang coming back down the road, and I said, Chance, is that the same guy? And he pulled in, and I said, will you just go make sure he's not trying to record people? And we had no idea what he was doing. He was not at that point. He had binoculars now watching that same field. Well, Homeland Security put out that thing where if you see something, you say something. Mm-hmm. At that point, we just called the sheriff's department because now we've got somebody that had a camcorder that was facing a field, and now that same individual's got binoculars facing that same field. That field probably had, at the time, because half the kids are inside, half are out, because we got to manage. It's like herding cats, and so like we probably had half of them outside, and there was only teenagers and 2 elderly people, and maybe 1 other or 2 other adults out there. The rest is all kids, and so when we're seeing this, it looks suspicious. I mean, like, unfortunately, we live in a day and time where there's people walking into churches and shooting them up. There's like kids getting kidnapped and women getting grabbed and forced into sex trafficking and everything else. So we don't know the situation. All we know is there's somebody with a video camera that has now lied to us. There's somebody that's been asked to leave, left, goes across the street doing the same thing, and it looks weird. So we reported it. Since reporting it, it's been absolutely chaos. I mean, we've had threats, we've had YouTubers posting things that just aren't true. We've had attacks, we've had like verbal attacks. Let me just specify this because I know it's going to come out. We've had people call the church and leave vulgar messages, attack our social media, send me threats, blackmail me, like tell me if I'll post stuff that's anti-police, then they'll stop attacking the church, and like all because we just saw an incident that was weird. And so I did, once the sheriff's department arrived on the scene, I drove over with one of our elders. And so I'm not going to say his name because now that I know that this is recorded and it's going to be released to the public, I'm not going to put his name out there. But I went over with one of our elders from the church, and so he goes with me, and we sit, and I approach one of the officers that was on the scene, like he was in an SUV, I believe, and that's whatever he told me, that I believe he said at that time that, Mr. Hoffman said that he was a PI. I don't know that he had presented any credentials at the time, but I do know that he had let them know that he was a PI. I was told, which I guess like it's a professional courtesy, that typically if a PI is doing something like that, he would get permission or notify the sheriff's department of what he was doing. My question to you on record is it legal for somebody to come onto private property and film anyone?
If it's a private property.
Ours is clearly marked private property now,
if it is
everywhere.
Not, in order for him to come onto the property of the church and film legally, he should have had permission from the church. If he's conducting surveillance for his private investigation or whatever service he has, he would be perfectly within his right to do that from a common public area.
Right. Which he was not. He was in the church parking lot against the curb of the church.
Right.
And so, to be clear, he violated property rights. He did not have access to private property, was not there for any church function. He did not have permission to be on that property, and he violated our property owner rights by coming on there. He was doing so illegally, right?
You are within your rights to notify him of trespassing and have the no trespassing issued.
Okay.
Anything beyond that, I would refer you to legal counsel, which we are.
I've spoken to several. I mean, multiple attorneys have approached me wanting to sue not only him but both of the YouTube people. Multiple attorneys have.
Okay. Let's move forward to when you're across the street in the Winn-Dixie parking lot and the officers are on the scene. Mm-hmm. At any time, do you recall any of the sheriff's office personnel being unprofessional,
No.
rude?
No.
Making any comments that could have offended Mr. Hoffman or should have offended Mr. Hoffman?
I'll tell you exactly. I have talked to Mr. Hoffman. I made 3 comments that were stupid. I shouldn't have said. I made a joke with one of the guys, and I mean, I'm just a good old boy that grew up right here in Yulee, and I made a joke something about like, bet you wish you could cut that body camera off, which was dumb. And I, when Mr. Hoffman called me several weeks ago, I apologized to him. I said, hey man, I shouldn't have said that. He's like, you don't owe me an apology. And I was like, no, I do. I was like, I should not have said that. I didn't mean it. It was a joke. But if it hurt your feelings, I want you to know, man to man, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. And also there's 2 other comments I said. I guess I said needs to be taken behind the woodshed. Again, it was off color. I told him, hey man, I shouldn't have said that. And I also said, I don't know how you guys can take what you're taking. And this is why I'm saying this, because I want to get to your question. I said, man, I don't understand how you guys can take what you take. If I'm a pastor, and if somebody talked to me like that, I would want to punch them in the face. And I apologize for all 3 of those things to Mr. Hoffman. He did not hear any of those things. He heard them on the video afterwards. It was a joke. It was the wrong thing to do. I repented. I apologized to him. That was the right thing to do. To answer your question, what I saw on June 5th, 2024 was probably the most incredible use of self-control I've ever seen. Like, I don't know how you guys do it. He, as you can see from the body camera footage, he berated those officers. I mean, cussing at them, calling them, telling them he hates them. And, those officers, I never seen them put their hand on their gun. I never seen them get aggressive with him. In fact, they kept their fingers tucked in their belt loop or in their pants where their hands were clearly visible. And, they never took an aggressive posture. I read body language. They never took an aggressive posture with him. They were constantly trying to de-escalate the situation. And I'm supposed to be the man of God, and they were exemplifying what professionalism looked like there where I could see, like in the area I was in. Each one of those officers, I don't know how y'all do it.
When while all this was going on, Deputy Jones went inside the Winn-Dixie and had a conversation with the management there. Were you?
I was not there.
Did you hear anything about that?
No.
Okay.
I was not there, and and Michael Hoffman, he asked me what my opinion was on that too whenever he called me, and I told him I have no opinion on that. I don't know what took place in there. I know that everybody there was, probably anxious. I mean, you're getting cussed at and talked to like you're a dog, and your blood's probably rising. Any humans would be, So I do know that. Like, I don't know what went on. I don't know at what time he went. I don't know what he heard, what he saw. But I do know, I'm certified in a bunch of different things, like Firewatch for suicide prevention. And, I've counseled people with anger issues and different things. And, I know that, there are triggers for everybody. Anybody can be triggered to say something, react. But I never saw anybody do anything, and I was not in Winn-Dixie when Mr. Jones went in there.
Okay. The only other question I have is when the supervisor arrived on scene, Sergeant Murdoch.
Yes.
On his on another deputy's camera, there's a statement made that Sergeant Murdoch said that he wished they didn't have those cameras. Did you hear that statement?
I said that. He didn't say that.
Okay.
I said, I bet you wish you did not have those cameras, which, again, I personally apologize to Mr. Hoffman. It was a joke. He is one of my church members. I was cutting up with him. And he said, you have no idea, or something of that nature. I mean, it was not, he was witnessing those guys just get eaten alive verbally.
But
I do not believe that he
was
said
made
that
on camera.
Right.
Would you have found that offensive, considering the things that were going on in the background?
No, I mean, because again, I'm the one that instigated that comment. I said something stupid
Right.
to a friend, which, you know, I should not have said, and I've owned it. I've owned it publicly. I put it on my Facebook page, like made a post. I sent it to my church members. I stood on stage and told the church about it. It's not something that I have hidden from. I owned it, like 110%. I made a comment to Officer Murdoch, and if he responded, it was in response to my joke. It was not in response to, he was not taking an aggressive posture. He was not reacting. I mean, if anything, I was probably, you know, the one that shouldn't have said something, and I did.
Right. On that particular statement,
Yeah.
of which they didn't have those cameras, do you know if Mr. Hoffman was able to hear that from at the time it was said?
No, there's no. I do not
camera?
think that there would be a possible way that he would have been able to. I have a diesel truck. I think my truck was running. So where we were, Mr. Hoffman was parked probably a deer hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say probably about 50 yards away from where the hood of my truck was with his truck, maybe 48. But you had him screaming and yelling at the officers at the time, and everybody defines screaming differently. He was talking in a very loud, you know, matter of fact, aggressive to me tone to the officers. And so in the moment, like me and Murdoch and, you know, the elder of the church, and I think maybe Chance had already left. I think he left pretty quick, and we were all at the back of my truck, or pretty close to. I mean, it would have been a long, like, if he could hear over all that was going on and the traffic right there, because you got to understand, there's semis going by right there constantly, and you got two intersections, so they're all slowing down usually, and so there's J-break. I mean, if he heard it, it'd be a miracle.
Okay. Thinking back to the deputy's actions,
Yes.
and I'm going to use some language here that comes from Mr. Hoffman's email that he sent us. Do you believe any of the deputies on the scene that day acted in a malicious nature?
I personally do not believe that they acted maliciously. I did not see, and all I could see is what I could see. I don't know what happened when people were away from me.
Right.
But the deputies that I saw, every single one of them acted extremely professional. Now, I don't know all the laws.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out all kinds of stuff about private investigators and everything. And I now know a lot more. Now my property's marked at every entrance private property, and because I found out that if you put private property signs up everywhere and somebody comes in and causes a disturbance, it's no longer a misdemeanor, it's a felony. And if you ask them to leave and they don't leave immediately, then it's a felony. So I put private property signs up now because of fear of all this.
Okay. I'm going to read these other adjectives. Slanderous, unprofessional, misconduct, bad faith, and downright wrong.
Are you talking about Mr. Hoffman?
No, I was talking about the deputy's actions. Did you observe any of that you felt like needed to be addressed?
I personally,
the day of the incident.
I personally did not. Again, I saw deputies trying to de-escalate the entire time. They were trying to, he kept asking the same question, which was, am I being detained? And they were answering them, yes, you're being detained right now. Because you're being trespassed from the property across the street. So.
You have anything? Okay. In closing, these questions may sound silly, but they're standardized in all of our closings. Have you understood all of my questions today?
I have.
Do you believe that any of the deputies violated policy of the sheriff's office that you're aware of?
Not in my presence, no.
Are there any answers you would like to change?
The only thing I wish I could have changed is I wish Chance's name would not have been released at the very beginning.
Is there anything else you wish to make known?
No, I mean just the fact that there was so much mistruth being spread. I mean, like even I think one of the YouTube guys quoted a law that was related to public property, like. The church is private property, and if you're not a parishioner and you do not have a reason to be there for what we are doing, that is private property. He was on our private property, and it breaks my heart for you guys and for what my family has went through because of this, and and I would do it again. Like, I would call the police again in a second when these kids are involved. I've had so many people come to our church now because they've said, I want a pastor, I'll call the police if people are filming my kids and they don't know what they're doing there. Battered women saying, thank you for giving us a place where we can come and not have to worry about this stuff. What your deputies went through on that day, they should have never went through. I don't know what they could have done different. I really don't. I've tried to make it right with Mr. Hoffman personally, just because I think, the Bible says if you've got a problem with your brother, go to your brother. And, I've talked to him 3 different times now. And, and I'll say this, I mean, I think that me and him are finally in a good spot where I think he has forgiven me for what I said, even though he didn't hear it. But your deputies, the entire time on scene in where I was, were extremely professional, extremely calm. And I never seen them take an aggressive posture, anything. They made me proud how they handled themselves with the situation that was going on.
Okay.
And I'm grateful for them.
Okay. And the last question is everything you told us true?
Absolutely. Everything I have told you, I have told Mr. Hoffman. Everything that I have told you, I have told some reporter and she misquoted everything, but I think she misquoted everything with Michael too. But everything I have said to the best of my recollection, which I have relived this nightmare 1,000 times, is truthful.
Alrighty, that will conclude the interview. The time is 13:11.
Okay, so you heard from Donald Sherin, the pastor, the preacher, the man of God. Now you're going to hear from Deputy Jones. You're going to hear from Deputy Jones, the main culprit himself, the little lion weasel. Anyway, enjoy.
Okay, we are recording. My name is Detective T.C. Edwards of Nassau County Sheriff's Office Internal Affairs Unit. Today is October the 24th, 2024, and the time is 10:33 a.m. This is an interview of Deputy Daniel Jones. This interview is in reference to Internal Affairs case number Alpha Delta Mike 24-0009. In the room is myself, Detective Maldonado, and Deputy Jones. If you please raise your hand to be sworn. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name, spelling your last name.
Daniel Jones, Jones.
And you're aware you're being recorded.
Yes, sir.
And you previously read, understand, and signed your notice of interview that included your guarantee rights, your police officer bill of rights, your administrative rights, and your order of confidentiality.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The reason we're here is in reference to a complaint that was received by Mr. Michael Hoffman. The incident took place on June the 5th, 2024 at approximately 10:36 hours. Do you recall that incident?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What can you tell me about your involvement with that incident?
My involvement that day is I'm normally a resource deputy, and I was just kind of help backing up calls and doing property checks. I heard there's a suspicious person filming kids, or possibly filming kids, or watching kids at a religious assembly on at the Journey Church in Hilliard, I guess Vacation Bible School. And while I wasn't the primary deputy or zone deputy, it did draw my attention that somebody may be loitering and prowling and watching children. So I went over to the scene. The scene had changed from the Journey Church to the Winn-Dixie straight across the way. Basically, when I got there, I made contact with the pastor, what I believe is a pastor, and another witness, and they were saying this guy's filming kids, watching kids at their Vacation Bible School, which I could clearly see across the street. There's several children out there, maybe elementary school age children, a couple adults, and maybe a couple teenager chaperones. The Mr. Hoffman, the subject, I saw he was illegally parked when I showed up. He was blocked like a T intersection. There's parking spaces like either side of them, and I basically asked him what he was doing. He's like, I ain't got to tell you. So to summarize that aspect of it, I had a couple witnesses telling me he's watching kids. They actually watched him, filming or, toward a field of children on a playground. And then I asked him, and he's being hostile, not necessarily telling me what he's doing. I mean, he's flat out saying, I ain't got to tell you what I'm doing. Then I get asked by the primary deputy, which is Deputy Gray. He's like, hey, can you see if Winn-Dixie wants to trespass? Well, I go in there and I talk to the manager, and I did, it's on the body camera. I, told him what the information I had in good faith. Like, I believed he was, possibly watching kids. And I told him he was parked. I written down several times where I did mention parking. And then, I didn't, at that point, I didn't believe he was a private investigator. I mean, he's parked weird in a position where, like I said, a normal private investigator, to me, would be, they're not legally obligated to say, hey, I'm doing an investigation, but the overwhelming majority of private investigators would call the sheriff's office to avoid some conflict like this. There's no call, again, not illegal, but he's pulled up on the church's property, which is kind of suspicious. Like, most private investigators would go to a place of concealment or somewhere where they're not going to be visibly seen by maybe somebody they're investigating. So, I mean, that drew my attention. I'm like, man, he's probably not an investigator. And then, with that, like, there's not many adults out there. There's more children than adults. It's a religious function going on. And then the aspect of him, like, going and parking, not in a parking space, but like a parking spot that's going to draw some attention. Like, most people would try to maybe blend in or park in a spot where, like, it's just not drawing attention. So I felt with what I saw there, his demeanor, his argumentative demeanor at the time, what the pastor and the other witness said, that he's watching kids, hey man, he's probably doing this, or he may be a agitator. There's not really sure name, but them agitators will try to put himself in a suspicious position just to create content for social media. So I didn't know. He could be a loiterer and prowler. He could be a person maybe trying to kidnap a kid, or a parent that maybe they're separated and he's not supposed to have custody, or he could be an agitator for social media. I told the Winn-Dixie manager what I had. Like, hey, there's someone possibly filming kids from the information I had. I come out at a store. He asked me directly. He's like, what do you say? And like, I don't still know what this guy's doing, so I'm not going to like give him any information, and I'm not being interviewed. I'm not legally obligated to give him information. So I told him, I did say the parking thing, which I did tell Winn-Dixie numerous occasions in there, like he's parked weird, he's like maybe illegally parked. But I went to say also that you're watching, but I didn't want to like instigate the situation or inflame the situation, so I just left it at that. Kind of backed off. Talked to a pastor, he reinforced like, hey, or the pastor or security guy, the witnesses from the church, they kind of reinforced it again. He was watching. I could hear him from a distance saying he was detained, but he had already asked for an investigator, so I went up to even try to defuse it more and give him a second chance. Like, at that point again, I didn't know he was an investigator or, said he was an investigator or anything. I tried to give him a chance, and then he just kind of went off on me. He said at one point he's a police officer. I'm kind of thinking like, well, maybe you should realize like why we're investigating this, like why this is kind of suspicious. So I didn't really want to inflame him. I didn't want to say like, well, you should know better. I didn't say anything like that, and I didn't cuss, even though he's cussing and ranting and raving. I just like, hey, let's try to defuse this thing. Let's give him an opportunity. He again kind of went in that instigator, agitator stance, saying I hate the effing police, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm glad I know where we stand. I didn't let him try to draw me. It seemed like he was trying to draw me into a verbal altercation or something, and I was just again trying to defuse it, give him an opportunity. Later, I did learn that he did have an investigator license. I still didn't believe that's what he was doing, just by his demeanor and by, again, like who pulls up on a private property a person they're investigating, and who will go immediately across the street and park in a aggressive or lack of a better term here, a position to where you're going to be noticed. That just doesn't add up. And then finally, he toward the end of it, he wanted to go to Winn-Dixie, which is fine. I'm not chasing him, but at that point, several church members were circling their cars around the kids outside because they're in fear. They still don't know what this guy's doing, and I really don't either. Again, I was like, maybe a professional or a private investigator, why would you're instilling fear in these people? They're like circling their cars around kids. You got pastor calling 911. It just didn't add up that he was a private investigator. So what I told Winn-Dixie and the way I handled the situation was in good faith on my end. I don't know this man. I wasn't trying to cause a scene or like hold anything against him or anything like that. So I did go over to the church when he went to Wendy's, because they were circled up trying to prevent him from what they thought was watching the kids, and I just sat in there till the kids got picked up, because I thought, again, he was not doing something right. If you're an investigator, why would you do that? So I waited till all the kids were picked up, and then I went back to normal duties, which was property checks, helping with calls, things of that nature.
Okay. When you arrived on the scene, Mr. Hoffman and Deputy Gray were already on the scene, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he was no longer at the church, he was at the Winn-Dixie parking lot.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever approach Mr. Hoffman's vehicle and observe to a point where you were able to observe what was inside the vehicle?
I could see binoculars and what looked like I thought was a camera. So, I mean, it's kind of consistent with what the pastor was saying of okay. Like, hey, he had a camera out.
Who did you learn from that Mr. Hoffman was a private investigator?
Well, when I went back after I talked to Winn-Dixie, I did see he had a card, but I didn't know if that was, like, again, legit or what. Still kind of in disbelief that somebody that's saying they're this job, because not to stretch this out, but if I was in that position, or if I'm undercover as an officer or something, I'm not going to be arguing. I'm going to be like, hey, this is what I'm doing.
Okay. When did Deputy Gray inform you that Mr. Hoffman was a private investigator?
I'd have to rewatch the video. I did see Gray with the card, so that's how I assumed he would. Maybe he could be.
Right.
You know.
Okay. With the totality of the circumstances of what was going on, did you have any reason to not believe that Mr. Hoffman was investigating something and not filming children?
I'll try to put that together. No, just because of his actions. Again, like he's parked in a position to draw heat, and I'm like, I went from maybe loiter, thinking this initially going this suspicious person called loitering and prowling, to maybe he's just trying to cause a scene or something. Like, wow, his actions and demeanor didn't add up that he was investigating something. And I did try to give him an opportunity a few times to clarify that, and he didn't.
While dealing with Mr. Hoffman, did you attempt to de-escalate the situation?
Oh, yes, sir. And I mean, that's evident by my body camera, when he's saying, I hate you effing guys, I hate the effing police. Like, I'm like, hey, okay, I'm glad we know where we're staying. That's fine if you hate us. I'm not here. It's not personal. I'm just here to see why witnesses saying you're looking at, kids.
In your experience in your school and on the street, have you had instances where estranged parents have attempted to make contact with their children?
Yes, on multiple occasions. Actually, right now I got a situation, I'm not going to go into detail, but an officer from another jurisdiction can't go up there and get his kid. I've had several situations like that to where, unruly parent, I thought this could possibly even be, so a parent that's got an injunction on them can't have the kid or something. So that's kind of my thought process.
When you came out of the Winn-Dixie and Mr. Hoffman continued to be excited.
Yes, sir.
You stated you began contemplating that he may be what we refer to as a First Amendment auditor. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the reason that you felt that is what?
His agitation, the whole, he's filming, even though we got body cameras, his name and badge, ID number, the arguing over a simple parking spot, like he's parked, and you can see on the body camera, he's parked in a T parking, so like 3 different lanes of travel would have to go around him when, like, there's parking spots on 5 feet on either side of him. So that, it just didn't add up that he was a private investigator, that he maybe an agitator or somebody trying to get some social media content.
Did you observe any interaction between Mr. Hoffman and the pastor, Pastor Sherin?
They were separated by the time I got there. The pastor and another subject was, kind of parked off to the side. I don't think I did see. I think I just spoke to the pastor, and like I said, I was kind of active scene when I got there. But Gray was already there, so I don't think I've seen any direct contact between the two.
Okay. Did you observe any contact between Mr. Hoffman and Deputy Allen?
Yeah, I saw him talking to Deputy Allen.
Would you say that Deputy Allen's composure and demeanor were professional in nature?
100%. I mean, he was trying to de-escalate the thing. He kind of, he let Mr. Hoffman know why he was there, and that, hey, man, this, like, people, they're saying you're watching kids, like, we're trying to investigate this.
Did you observe interaction between Mr. Hoffman and Deputy Gray?
Gray was mostly in his car, like, typing a thing, but I think he did say a few things. I just don't really recall.
Do you recall any action by Deputy Gray that you would have context as being unprofessional?
No, Gray was professional the entire time. I mean, he's just doing his job again. I think he was trying to de-escalate the situation. And
it's my understanding that Sergeant Murdoch was summoned to the scene at the request of Mr. Hoffman. Did you observe Sergeant Murdoch be unprofessional towards Mr. Hoffman?
No, he wasn't unprofessional.
Did you hear any statements made by Sergeant Murdoch once he arrived on the scene?
He just told him he's trespassed from the Winn-Dixie and from the Journey Church.
Okay.
The only thing I got is it's have you ever in your experience with Nassau County as a deputy or SRO, have you ever came across another private investigator that did not call the sheriff's office, and once you approach them, how did that
Yeah,
interaction came?
I actually have this way back before body cameras, 8 years ago before I became an SRO. But I came across one. He's down the street, a couple houses down, and someone from across the street called and said, "Hey, this guy's hanging." He didn't call, but the interaction was super professional. I talked to a guy. He's like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. I can't go into a lot of detail because it is a case." And showed me his ID, showed me his driver's license, and I was like, "Hey, man, have a good day." And
Since this incident, the Nassau County Sheriff's Office had some mandatory training in dealing with First Amendment auditors. Did you attend that class?
yes, sir, I did.
With that in mind, if you had encountered Mr. Hoffman after that training, would the interaction have been different, and if so, how?
I don't really think so, because the information I initially had was, the pastor, the security guy. I don't attend church, so I really don't know which was which in the video, but they clearly said they saw him filming the kids. And let me draw a clear thought here. I went and I asked him. I was very cordial. I wasn't aggressive at all. I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "I ain't got to tell you." He didn't tell me he had a license. I didn't know that's what he was doing. I mean, it's clear in the video. So with that information, I went into Winn-Dixie and basically just had one side of the story because the other party wasn't giving me their side. I told them what I had in good faith. And when I went back outside, I wasn't, even though he was cussing and looked like he was trying to bait me, and even Alan and bait us into something, if lack of a better term. I didn't allow it. I didn't want to, like I said, I didn't want to give him information to put on social media. I am aware that there are social media videos because, like the pastor's interview, I've been bombarded at work and in my personal life. And so, I mean, I think I've done everything I could do clearly.
Since Mr. Hoffman posted his video on social media,
Yes, sir.
how has that impacted you?
It's been negative. I like to get out and I like to help the community. As part of special operations, I wanted to take the sergeant's test, something I had studied for 6 months, and I just, because the negativity on social media, I decided to opt out of it. Just because I didn't want to get in a position where I would be promoted and then people berate the sheriff's office because hey, they're promoting this guy. So I decided not to take it, and it wasn't under any, nobody told me not to. I took it upon myself to do that. Just because of social media stuff, I was signed up to go to Liberty University. I decided not to do this semester, to go to maybe the January semester, just because I am, dealing with a lot. So it's
When you say you're dealing with a lot of negativity, what type of negativity have you received?
I mean, I can't look on my workplace social media because it's been constant. This guy needs to be fired. He's a tyrant. My social media, I've had to delete a lot of it. I got Facebook. I had to set all my privacy settings to private, even though I'm not a very private person. I like to be out and about, and I've received threats. People have commented on posts that I've made a year ago, just to where they could say, this guy's a jerk. one post, I had kids cleaning my car, and I've been a soccer team I coach, and they're saying that, this guy's likes kids and stuff like that. And I mean, it's all derogatory stuff and inflammatory. And the people I made these videos, I believe there's 2, I've looked at, I've got text and the videos have been posted on my place of employment. I watched it and just read a few comments, and it's comments that are just, these videos are made for people that are against law enforcement, that, you don't have to look any further in the comments. These people, it's to inflame a situation. And it really has, it hasn't, I hold it together at work. I'm strong. I work in corrections and stuff like that, where I've had to deal with all kind of people saying bad stuff about me. I'm fine with that. I just don't like, going to my workplace and putting out workplace stuff, calling my workplace, going after my family. My family's been called names, just things like that. So a point to where I'm almost considering getting a lawyer to civilly protect myself or see what my options are. So.
Okay.
No, that's it.
Okay. Have you understood all the questions that we've asked today?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that you violated policy?
I don't. With the information I was given, I believe I stayed within policy, and with his actions not telling me what was going on, I 100% believe I stayed in policy.
Are there any answers you would like to change?
No, sir.
Is there anything else concerning this incident you'd like to make known that we haven't talked about already?
No, sir. I think explained it all, at least from my perspective.
And is everything you told us true?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With that, the interview is concluded. The time is 10:56 a.m.
Okay, so you just heard from the liar himself, Dan Jones. So we got one more to go, and that's going to be Deputy Gray. That's the deputy that initially stopped me. And he's full of some lies himself. So enjoy.
We are recording. My name is Detective T.C. Edwards of the Nassau County Sheriff's Office Internal Affairs Unit. Today is January 24th, 2025, and the time is 13:55 hours. This is an interview of Deputy David J. Gray. The interview is in reference to Internal Affairs case number Alpha Delta Mike 24-0009. In the room is myself, Detective Maldonado, and Deputy Gray. If you please raise your right hand to be sworn. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
I do.
Please state your name.
David Jason Gray.
And spell your last name.
Gray.
And are you aware that you're being recorded?
Yes, sir.
And you've previously had a chance to read, understand, and sign your notice of interview, which includes your guarantee rights, your police officer bill of rights, your administrative rights, and your order of confidentiality. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then also you have declined to conduct a review of the paperwork involved in the video that was offered to you, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's go back to, I believe it was sometime in June.
Mm-hmm.
You had a call involving Mr. Michael Hoffman. Do you recall that incident?
I do. Yes, sir.
All right. What can you tell me about it from the time that you went on scene? First, what can you tell me about what the call was about, and then what happened once you went on scene?
Initially, a call came out in reference to a subject videotaping children at the Journey Church West Division, and had been run off from the property and ended up on the Winn-Dixie parking lot across the street.
Okay. And when you made contact with Mr. Hoffman, what happened?
Once making contact with Mr. Hoffman, I asked for his ID. He became a little irritated and said that he was a private investigator. And I told him, I said that, aren't you supposed to contact the sheriff's office to at least inform us that you're here? Plus, he was also parked sideways in the parking lot, not in a respective parking spot or designated parking spot. And then from that point, I asked for his ID again. He said it's right there. And speaking in reference to his private investigators thing, I ended up calling for a 35, which, forgive me, I don't remember Dale's last name. It came.
Deputy Jones?
No, Dale.
Alan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Allen.
Deputy Allen.
Deputy Allen. They ended up coming and kind of gave him a brief on what happened. And he continued to argue and asked if he was being detained, at which point I believe I told him that he was. I asked for the Winn-Dixie manager to be contacted by Deputy Jones to see if they would like to have him trespass from the property. And then went from there.
Okay. You recall the identification that Mr. Hoffman presented to you?
I do, yes, sir.
And was that a Florida driver's license / ID card, or was that something else?
It was the private investigator card.
Do you recall if his private investigator card had enough information on it for you to be able to run a check for warrants and previous contact?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay. Since your involvement with Mr. Hoffman, or after your involvement with Mr. Hoffman, did you receive additional verbal training from Sergeant Murdoch concerning the private investigators calling into dispatch, whether that was required or not?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Did you do any type of research on your own to determine if that is a valid if that's something that's required by statute, municipal ordinance, or just as a courtesy?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. Deputy Jones, did he have any interaction with Mr. Hoffman that you recall?
I do recall. I don't exactly remember what was said.
Okay. You said that you had requested Deputy Jones go inside and speak to the Winn-Dixie manager. Were you present for that?
I was not, no, sir.
Okay. Do you recall if Deputy Allen had any interaction with Mr. Hoffman?
He did.
Okay. And would you say that his interaction was professional, or did it...
Deputy Allen or the other gentleman?
Deputy Allen's.
His was professional, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you recall Deputy Revels being on the scene?
I do not.
Okay. So do you know if he had any interaction with Mr. Hoffman?
Unknown.
Okay. You recall once Sergeant Murdoch arrived at the scene?
I do. I was sitting in my truck when he approached.
Okay. Did he have any interaction with Mr. Hoffman?
He did.
Did you overhear Sergeant Murdoch make any statements as he arrived on the scene?
I don't recall.
Okay. Is Sergeant Murdoch required by policy to have a camera, a body-worn camera?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
Is Sergeant Murdoch required by policy to have a body-worn camera?
No, sir.
While you were dealing with Mr. Hoffman, do you recall Pastor Sherin being at the scene, or was he across the street at the church?
He did eventually arrive on scene, yes, sir.
Okay. Did he have any further interaction with Mr. Hoffman?
They exchanged words. I don't recall exactly what was said.
Okay. What was Mr. Hoffman's demeanor towards the deputies that responded?
Aggravated and agitated.
Okay. Was there anyone on scene that you felt like attempted to de-escalate the situation?
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir. Maybe Deputy Allen, as they were talking when I was off camera.
Okay. Do you have anything, Jose? I don't think I've got anything else. Have you understood all of our questions?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that you violated policy?
No, sir.
Are there any answers you'd like to change?
No, sir.
Is there anything else you wish to make known concerning this incident?
Not at this time.
And is everything you told me true?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That'll conclude the interview. The time is 14:02 hours.
All right, so that's it. That's the recorded interviews from the Internal Affairs investigation. I highly encourage you to go back and look at the original video. I'll put a link right here somewhere, I guess. Somewhere in here you'll find a link to the original video. And then you can see the lies for themselves because they did lie quite a bit, tried to cover themselves up. They used hindsight to justify their actions in the moment. It's egregious. What they did is disgusting, downright illegal, unethical, unprofessional. a few more adjectives. But what do you expect from local law enforcement? These are the tyrants and thugs that we pay with our tax dollars to protect our rights. So get what you pay for. All right, anyway, I digress. That's everything. I hope you enjoyed it, and there is a lot more news to come. I've got news about the attorney. I've got news about the case. But I just want to break this up. I wanted this to be about the internal affairs investigation and the recordings. And I handled this a certain way. I am trying to be very methodical. This information is for opposing counsel. I'm trying to be very methodical about what I do, what I say, and how I conduct myself. So I post these interviews knowing that opposing counsel is watching them, and I welcome my day in a forum where I will be asking questions, and you, Deputy Jones, Deputy Gray, Deputy Allen, Sergeant Murdoch, and a few others, will have to answer my questions. You will not be controlling the narrative any longer, and the truth will finally be exposed. So I am so looking forward to that moment. So enjoy.